The marble corridors of the Russell Senate office building stretched endlessly before him. Each footfall echoed against walls that had witnessed a century of power and compromise. Declan Thorne kept his eyes forward, though the weight of the steel handcuffs around his wrists sent dull aches through his shoulders with every movement. Two federal marshals flanked him. Their polished badges caught the afternoon light streaming through tall windows. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The silence carried its own message. He was nobody here. Just another problem to be processed and forgotten. March sunlight painted golden rectangles across the floor. Tourists pressed against velvet ropes to watch senators pass. They ignored Declan entirely. A man in handcuffs was hardly worth a photograph when real power walked these halls in tailored suits and practiced smiles. His reflection caught him off guard. The polished black granite of the wall showed a stranger. 38 years old, but looking closer to 50. Dark hair grown too long, face weathered by 7 years of manual labor in bitter solitude. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on a frame that had once carried 200 pounds of Navy SEAL muscle. Now it just carried defeat. The charges were absurd: trespassing on federal property, unauthorized access to classified facilities. They said he'd driven a delivery truck into a restricted defense contractor site in Maryland. No explanation that it was a navigation error. No consideration that the facility's perimeter wasn't even properly marked. Just handcuffs and a federal summons. But trespassing charges didn't usually involve Senate Intelligence Committee hearings. Minor violations got handled by district courts and probation officers. Not this. This was something else entirely. The corridor took another turn. Different architecture here. Older. The original building dated to 1909, and this section still carried that weight. Dark wood paneling. Brass fixtures gone green with age. The kind of space designed to make visitors feel small. Declan found his mind drifting despite himself. A dangerous habit, but one he couldn't shake. 7 years of trying to forget had only sharpened certain memories, made them cut deeper when they surfaced uninvited. Atlanta, 2017. The smell of burning concrete and melted steel. The taste of ash on his tongue. The sound of a young woman's voice barely audible over the roar of flames whispering a promise he couldn't keep. Through here. The marshal's voice pulled him back. They stood before ornate double doors, the Senate seal carved into dark oak. Through these doors lay the Intelligence Committee hearing room. Through these doors, whatever came next. The marshal knocked twice. Waited. A muffled voice from within. The doors swung inward. The hearing room was smaller than Declan expected. No soaring ceiling or grand gallery, just an intimate space designed for secrets. 20 rows of seats curved in a semicircle facing a raised dais where committee members sat behind polished mahogany. Most seats were empty. This wasn't a public hearing. A handful of staffers occupied the back rows. A stenographer sat motionless at her machine. 3 news cameras, their red lights dark. Whatever happened here wouldn't see daylight unless someone with power decided otherwise. The committee bench held 7 senators. Declan recognized a few faces from news coverage. Men and women whose names appeared on Sunday talk shows and appropriations bills. They studied him with the detached interest of scientists examining a specimen. All except one. The center chair held the youngest person in the room. Mid-20s at most, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, a charcoal suit that cost more than Declan earned in 6 months. And eyes, deep sapphire blue eyes that carried weight far beyond their owner's years. Senator Evangeline Ashford, the youngest senator in American history, elected at 22 to fill her dead father's seat. The press called her a political prodigy, a generational talent, the future of the Democratic Party. Declan called her the reason his life had ended 7 years ago, though she didn't recognize him. Why would she? He'd been just another rescuer in the chaos, another uniform in the smoke. The man who'd pulled her from the rubble had worn a helmet and Kevlar, not prison orange and 7 years of failure. She studied the file before her. Every line of her posture radiated controlled authority, the kind of bearing that came from bloodlines and boarding schools, from knowing your grandfather had walked these halls and his father before him. Ashford dynasty, power measured in generations, not terms. Mr. Thorne, her voice carried easily across the room, cultured, East Coast educated, the slight Virginia drawl carefully modulated but never quite erased. Do you understand why you're here? Declan stood straight, or old training died hard. No, ma'am. The charges are trespassing. That's usually handled by local courts, not Senate committees. Answer the question asked, not the one you wish was asked. A ripple of quiet laughter from the other senators. Declan felt heat crawl up his neck. 7 years of humiliation, and he could still be made to feel like a recruit who'd failed inspection. I understand I'm here to answer questions about my alleged trespassing on federal property. Alleged. Senator Evangeline leaned back. The leather chair creaked softly. You were found inside a restricted defense facility. Security footage shows your vehicle entering through an employee gate. You were arrested carrying navigational equipment and detailed site maps. What part of that is alleged? The intent, ma'am. I drive for Sterling Logistics. I was making a delivery. My GPS glitched. I took a wrong turn. The facility wasn't properly marked from the approach road. Sterling Logistics. She consulted her notes. A company you've worked for 3 months, after working 6 months for Rapid Response Couriers. Before that, 8 months with Eastern Seaboard Freight. Should I continue your employment history over the past 7 years reads like a man running from something. Declan said nothing. The truth wouldn't help. Yes, he was running. From memories, from failure, from the look in his commander's eyes when they'd stripped his rank and ended his career. But admitting that here would accomplish nothing. Senator Cornelius Blackwell leaned forward from his position, 3 seats left of center. 70 years of hard living carved into his face. The committee has reviewed your military record, Mr. Thorne. Navy SEAL, Disaster Response Specialist. Commendations from 3 combat deployments. Then nothing. Just a sealed discharge file and a gap of 3 weeks in 2017. Care to explain that gap? It's sealed, sir. I can't discuss it. Can't or won't. Can't, sir. Part of my discharge agreement. Blackwell's smile carried no warmth. Convenient. A mystery gap in your service record right around the time of certain classified incidents. And now you're found inside a facility that manufactures guidance systems for military applications. You see how this looks. I see how you want it to look, sir. The room went very quiet. Declan realized his mistake immediately. You didn't talk back to senators. Not if you were nobody. Not if you wanted to walk out of this room. But Evangeline Ashford's expression hadn't changed. If anything, something flickered behind those sapphire eyes. Recognition numbered possible. She'd been 17, terrified, half-conscious from smoke inhalation. She wouldn't remember one rescuer's voice from 7 years ago. Mr. Thorne, her tone shifted, became more formal. This committee takes national security very seriously. We don't summon people for traffic violations. The facility you entered houses some of our most sensitive defense technologies. Technologies that foreign intelligence services would pay dearly to access. I'm not a spy, ma'am. Then what are you? Ooh. The question landed like a physical blow. What was he, a failed SEAL? A disgraced soldier? A man who'd chosen conscience over career and spent 7 years paying for it? A driver who made barely enough to cover rent on a studio apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong? I'm nobody. Nobody. She repeated the word softly, tasting it. The last time you were in a government building, you received the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for heroism. The citation is sealed, but the medal exists. Nobody doesn't get that medal, Mr. Thorne. He looked at her then, really looked, trying to see past the senator to the girl underneath. Was there any trace left? Any flicker of the terrified 17-year-old who'd gripped his hand in that burning building and made him promise he wouldn't forget? Last time I was in a government building, I got a medal, he said quietly. This time I get handcuffs. Funny how things change. Evangeline Ashford went absolutely still. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Staffers exchanged glances. The stenographer's fingers hovered over her keys, uncertain. Then Senator Evangeline Ashford stood. Not gradually, not with the measured rise of someone maintaining decorum. She shot to her feet like she'd been struck by lightning. The leather chair rolled backward and hit the wall with a muted thump. Every head in the room turned. Senators stared. Staffers froze. The marshal beside Declan actually reached for his sidearm before catching himself. Evangeline's face had gone pale. Her hands gripped the edge of the dais, knuckles white against dark wood. Those sapphire eyes locked onto Declan's face with an intensity that made him want to step back. Your voice. The words came out barely above a whisper, but in the dead silence of the hearing room, everyone heard. Say that again. Exactly that. Say it again. Declan's mouth had gone dry. Ma'am, I don't say it again. The command cracked like a whip. Somewhere a senator cleared his throat uncomfortably. Protocol was being shredded. This wasn't how hearings worked. This wasn't how anything worked. But Declan heard himself speaking. Last time I was in a government building, I got a medal. This time I get handcuffs. Evangeline's breath caught. For one impossible moment, tears sheened in her eyes. Then she blinked them away with visible effort. When she spoke again, her voice carried steel. Everyone out. Nobody moved. I said everyone out. This hearing is concluded. All personnel are to vacate this room immediately. That includes committee members, staff, security. Everyone, now. Senator Blackwell stood slowly. Madam Chair, this is highly irregular. We haven't even begun questioning. Senator Blackwell. She turned that burning gaze on him. With all due respect, and I mean that sincerely, get the hell out of my hearing room. This is my committee, my hearing, and I'm invoking executive session privilege. You have 60 seconds to clear this space, or I will have you escorted out. The threat hung in the air. Blackwell's face cycled through several shades of red, but Evangeline Ashford was the committee chair. Youngest ever, yes, but the chair nonetheless. Executive privilege was hers to invoke. We'll discuss this breach of protocol, Senator. I'm sure we will. 50 seconds. The evacuation was chaos barely contained by professional dignity. Senators filed out with stiff spines and tight lips. Staffers grabbed tablets and files, moving with the hurried efficiency of people who knew when to make themselves scarce. The stenographer unplugged her machine. The camera operators killed their feeds. The marshals hesitated. Ma'am, the prisoner, remove his restraints and leave him. He's not going anywhere. Ma'am, that's against... Evangeline's glare could have melted steel. I grew up in these halls, Marshal. My father sat in this room for 20 years. My grandfather for 30 before him. I know every regulation, every protocol, every exception. And right now I'm invoking senatorial privilege to conduct a classified interview with a potential intelligence asset. You will remove his restraints. You will leave this room. And you will seal these doors until I personally unseal them. Are we clear? The marshal looked at his partner. Some silent communication passed between them. Then with visible reluctance, he produced keys and unlocked Declan's handcuffs. The steel fell away. Declan rubbed his wrist, feeling blood flow return to numb hands. Wait outside, Evangeline ordered. No one enters, no one listens, no one so much as breathes near this door until I say otherwise. The marshals left. The heavy oak doors swung shut with a sound like a coffin closing. The electronic lock engaged with a soft click, and then they were alone. Evangeline stood behind the dais for a long moment, her back to Declan, her shoulders rising and falling with controlled breaths. When she finally turned, the mask had cracked. The senator was gone. In her place stood something rawer, younger, more vulnerable. 7 years. Her voice shook. I've spent 7 years searching for you. Every database, every sealed file, every classified archive. I've used every ounce of power this family name carries. And you were driving a deliverer truck in Maryland. Declan couldn't find words. His mind was still trying to process what had just happened. The recognition, the evacuation, the way she'd looked at him. Atlanta, she continued. August 2017, the Ashford Dynasty Summit. Do you remember every second of it? The steel beam, the fire, the smoke so thick I couldn't see my own hands. You hummed something, a song, over and over. I never knew what it was. A tear escaped down her cheek. She wiped it away with an angry gesture. My mother's lullaby, from before the cancer took her. I thought if I kept humming it, I'd stay conscious, stay alive long enough for someone to find me. Someone did. You did. She descended from the dais, each step deliberate. When she reached him, she stopped 3 feet away, close enough to touch, far enough to maintain distance. You weren't supposed to be there. That building was in the collapse zone. Every other rescue unit had pulled back. I heard you crying. So you came. So I came. And you stayed. Even when the second explosion hit, even when you should have run, you covered me with your body and you stayed. Declan turned slightly, pulled up his orange jumpsuit to show the edge of scar tissue crawling up his back. White and puckered. Shrapnel wounds that would never fully heal. Yeah, I stayed. Evangeline reached out, stopped herself just before her fingers touched the scars. They told me you died after they airlifted me out after I woke up in the hospital. They said the building collapsed. No survivors. I believed them for 2 years. Probably easier that way. Easier, fire flashed in her eyes. You think it was easier believing the man who saved my life died because of me? You think I wanted that weight? Better than the truth, which is Declan met her gaze, held it, let her see 7 years of bitterness and regret. That I didn't die, I just got court-martialed instead. Discharged for violation of direct orders, told that saving a civilian, even one from a prominent political family, didn't justify abandoning my post. They sealed my record, stripped my rank, sent me into the world with a discharge that meant no security clearance, no government contracts, no future in emergency response. I've been driving trucks for 7 years because it's the only work nobody asks questions about. The color drained from her face. They court-martialed you for saving me, for violating orders. The fact that it was you just made it more complicated. Ashford dynasty, political implications. Better to bury it and pretend it never happened. I didn't know. God, Declan, I didn't know. Hearing his name from her lips felt like touching a live wire. How could you? You were 17. Then you became the miracle survivor, the political prodigy, youngest senator in history. You had better things to do than track down one disgraced SEAL. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't you dare tell me what I had time for. I've used every resource, called in every favor. There are people who think I'm obsessed. Maybe I am, but I made you a promise that day, in the helicopter when they were loading you onto the stretcher. Do you remember what you said to me? He remembered. Every word, every moment before the trauma drugs pulled him under. I said, don't forget me. And I said I wouldn't. I said I'd find you someday, that I'd make it right. 7 years is a long time to keep a promise to a stranger. You weren't a stranger. She stepped closer. You were the man who proved that honor still existed, that someone could choose right over expedient. In a family like mine, in a world like this, do you have any idea how rare that is? Rare enough to get me dishonorably discharged. The discharge was political. I know that now. I've seen the sealed files. Declan's head snapped up. That's impossible. Those files are classified above Senate level. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. You'd be surprised what the Senate Intelligence Committee chair can access, especially when she's in Ashford. My family has been in this building for 5 generations. We know where all the bodies are buried, sometimes literally. She moved to the dais and retrieved a tablet, tapped the screen, pulled up documents that made Declan's stomach drop. His court-martial file, every word he'd been forbidden to speak, every detail that had been buried. August 15th, 2017, she read aloud. Lieutenant Declan Thorne, U.S. Navy SEALs violated direct evacuation orders during the Atlanta crisis response. Subject entered collapse zone after official retreat was called. Engaged in unauthorized rescue operation of civilian target. When ordered to cease and withdraw, subject refused direct order from commanding officer. Subject's actions resulted in personal injury requiring 3 weeks medical recovery. However, no friendly casualties resulted from subject's decision. She looked up. No friendly casualties. You saved a life. You followed your conscience, and they destroyed you for it. The military doesn't run on conscience. It runs on orders. And orders said, leave me to die. Orders said the building was coming down, that more lives would be lost trying to save one civilian. They weren't wrong, I just didn't care. Evangeline set the tablet down. What if I told you I could give you back everything they took your rank, your record, your future? I'd say, you're dreaming. That discharge is permanent. Nothing in politics is permanent. I'm the Intelligence Committee chair. I have the president's ear. I can make calls that matter. Why would you do that? She moved to the window. Outside Washington, D.C. sprawled in the afternoon sun. The Capitol dome gleamed white. Monuments to dead presidents punctuated the landscape. The machinery of American power on full display. 40 years, she said quietly. For 40 years, this country's defense spending has been a feeding trough for contractors who prioritize profit over protection. Companies that bribe officials, cut corners on safety, send substandard equipment to soldiers who trust it with their lives. My father tried to reform it. So did my grandfather. Both failed. Both got crushed by the military-industrial complex they tried to fix. And you think you can succeed where they failed. I think I have something they didn't. A living symbol of what happens when we choose right over wrong. When we choose people over profit. You're not just a disgraced SEAL, Declan. You're proof that integrity still exists. That someone will sacrifice everything for what's right. I'm proposing the Defense Integrity Act, a complete overhaul of defense contracting. Transparency, accountability, real penalties for fraud. But I can't do it alone. I need someone the public will believe. Someone whose story cuts through the political noise. Understanding dawned cold in his gut. You want me as your poster boy. I want you as my partner. Help me pass this bill. Be the face of what we're fighting for. Show the American people that this matters, that honor matters. I'm not going to be your political prop, Senator. I'm not asking you to be a prop. I'm asking you to be what you've always been. The man who does the right thing when everyone else walks away. And if I refuse, she turned from the window, met his eyes, then I'll clear your record anyway, because you deserve that much. But I hope you won't refuse, because you taught me something 7 years ago. You taught me that one person's choice can change everything. I became who I am because of what you did, because you proved that honor isn't dead. Now I'm asking you to prove it again, to help me show this country that we can be better, that we can choose integrity over corruption, that we can. The tablet on the dais exploded with sound, emergency alert tone, loud enough to make them both flinch. Evangeline grabbed it, read the screen. Her face went pale. What is it? Chemical leak. Defense contractor facility in New Jersey. Chlorine gas, 300 workers trapped inside. Call emergency response. Hazmat teams. They'll handle it. Emergency response is refusing to enter. They say the risk is too high. Exposure could be fatal. Declan felt something cold settle in his chest. The old instincts. The ones 7 years hadn't quite killed. How long until the toss spreads? Estimates say 90 minutes before it breaches containment. If it reaches the nearby residential areas. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Their eyes met. A moment of perfect understanding. I'm going, she said. That's insane. You're a senator. I'm a senator who spent 7 years searching for the man who taught her that you don't abandon people just because it's dangerous. I'm not starting now. You don't know anything about chemical hazmat response. Then it's lucky I found someone who does. She looked at him, really looked. You've handled this kind of thing before. I've seen your classified record. 3 tours, dozens of emergency extractions. You know how to get people out of hell. I'm not military anymore. No, you're something better. You're someone who chooses to help because it's right, not because someone ordered you to. She picked up the phone on the dais. I'm calling for transport. We can be in New Jersey in 90 minutes. Will you help me save 300 lives? Or are you going to tell me that 7 years has changed who you are? Declan stood there, the question hanging between them like a sword. He could walk away, take the cleared record she'd offer, disappear back into civilian life. Let someone else handle the crisis. Let someone else risk their life for strangers. But standing there looking at Senator Evangeline Ashford's face, he saw the 17-year-old girl who'd gripped his hand in a burning building, who'd made him promise he wouldn't forget, who'd spent 7 years trying to find him. And he knew there was only one answer he could give. I'll need hazmat gear, full level A suits for anyone going in, positive pressure respirators, chemical neutralizing agent if they have it on site, and transport that can handle emergency decontamination. Relief flooded her face. Done. Anything else? Yeah. He met her eyes. When this is over, we talk. Really talk. about Atlanta, about what happened to both of us, about why you really searched for me. Something flickered in those sapphire eyes. Vulnerability, hope, fear. Deal. She made the calls. Declan stood at the window and watched Washington, D.C. in the fading afternoon light. Somewhere in New Jersey, 300 people were breathing poison. Somewhere in this building, senators were plotting how to use this crisis for political gain. But right now, in this moment, two people were choosing to do something simpler, something harder. They were choosing to help, just like 7 years ago in Atlanta, when a SEAL had violated orders to pull a girl from the rubble, when that girl had promised she wouldn't forget. Some promises Declan thought take 7 years to keep, but they're worth keeping nonetheless. The Sikorsky S-76 cut through darkening skies at 200 miles per hour. Below the eastern seaboard blurred into streams of light, cities becoming constellations, highways becoming rivers of red and white. Declan sat across from Evangeline in the helicopter's cramped cabin. She'd changed from her senatorial suit into tactical field clothes, dark cargo pants, a black jacket with Senate oversight stenciled in yellow. Her blonde hair pulled into a tight braid. She looked younger this way, closer to the 17-year-old he remembered, but her eyes held nothing young. She was on 3 phones simultaneously. One pressed to her ear, another balanced on her knee, showing video feeds. The third cycling through text messages faster than Declan could track. "No, Governor, I don't need your permission," she said into the phone. Her voice carried that particular blend of courtesy and steel that came from generations of political breeding. "This is a federal facility, interstate chemical hazard. That puts it under Senate intelligence purview. Your emergency services are welcome to assist, but they're not required. Yes, I understand your concerns. Note them for the record. Ashford out." She ended the call, immediately answered the next. "Colonel Merrick, status." The voice on the other end was crisp, military precision. "Senator, we have hazmat teams staging at the perimeter. Full level A suits as requested. Chemical analysis shows chlorine concentration at 800 parts per million and rising. OSHA permissible exposure limit is 1 part per million. English Colonel. Anyone inside is dying, fast." Evangeline's jaw tightened. "How many confirmed inside Dream?" Last count was 312. Day shift was rotating out when the leak started. Some made it, most didn't. The ones still inside have maybe 30 minutes before the concentration kills them, even if they've found sealed areas. Rescue protocol. Standard says wait for the case to dissipate. Could be 6 hours, could be 12. They'll all be dead in one. A pause. "Yes, ma'am." Then standard protocol is rejected. "We're going in." Another pause. Longer. "Senator, I have to advise against Brad. Your advice is noted and overruled. We're 15 minutes out. Have the entry teams ready." She ended the call, looked at Declan. "You're quiet. Listening, learning?" Learning what he considered. Outside, the last daylight bled from the sky. Politicians talk, make statements, hold press conferences. You just overruled a governor and a colonel in under 2 minutes. My family has been in government for 5 generations, Declan. We learned early that power isn't what you say, it's what you do when no one's watching. She leaned forward. That facility manufactures guidance systems for missile defense. The workers inside aren't just laborers, they're engineers, technicians, people with families and futures. If I let them die because protocol says wait, their blood is on my hands. You'll catch hell for this, going over official channels, putting yourself at risk. Let them give me hell. I've been catching it since I was 22 years old. First female Ashford senator, youngest ever elected. Every vote I cast, someone says I'm too young, too inexperienced, too emotional. I stopped caring what they think a long time ago. When she met his eyes, August 15th, 2017, when I woke up in a hospital bed and learned that the man who saved me lost everything because of it. That's when I stopped caring about politics and started caring about doing what's right. The helicopter banked hard. Through the window, Declan saw their destination, the Prometheus Defense Systems facility sprawled across 20 acres of New Jersey industrial wasteland. Normally it would be lit up like a football stadium. Tonight, emergency lights painted everything in harsh yellow and red. Fire trucks lined the perimeter. Police cruisers blocked access roads. And over it all, a sickly green haze hung in the air like a malevolent fog. Chlorine gas. Heavier than air, it would sink into every low point, every basement, every crawl space, searingly corrosive to human tissue. Lungs, eyes, skin, a bad way to die. They touched down on a hastily cleared parking lot 200 yards from the main building. The rotor wash scattered debris and made the emergency lights strobe in dizzying patterns. Evangeline was out before the skids fully settled. Declan followed. The night air hit him like a fist. Cold. March in New Jersey carried winter's bite, but under the cold lay something else. A chemical tang that made his eyes water even at this distance. A woman in army fatigues met them at a run. 50s, gray hair cut military short, 3 rows of ribbons on her chest. Senator Ashford, Colonel Callista Merrick. I'm coordinating the response. Status, Colonel. Deteriorating. The leak originated in the chemical storage area. Safety systems failed. Chlorine gas flooded the main production floor. Workers who couldn't reach exits are barricaded in sealed rooms. But those seals won't hold forever. We're estimating 20 minutes before the gas concentration reaches lethal levels even in the safe zones. Entry teams, Merrick hesitated. Senator, I have to be direct. The conditions inside are beyond what we normally risk responders for. The gas is too concentrated. The visibility is zero. We don't have accurate maps of who's where. We could send people in and lose them too. That's not what I asked, Colonel. I asked about entry teams. Staging now. 12 volunteers. Full hazmat gear. But Senator, even with protection, they're looking at maybe 30 minutes inside before the suits fail. The chlorine will eat through the seals. The positive pressure can only do so much. Evangeline turned to Declan. Can it be done? He studied the building. 3 stories, multiple wings, probably 500,000 square feet. Finding 300 people in that maze in zero visibility with a countdown timer measuring in minutes instead of hours. Every instinct said no, said this was suicide, said protocol existed for good reasons. But then he thought about 300 people, breathing poison, waiting for help that protocol said wouldn't come. And he thought about a 17-year-old girl trapped under a steel beam 7 years ago, waiting, hoping, surviving only because someone had ignored protocol. It can be done, he said, but not the way they're planning it. Evangeline's eyes locked onto his. Explain. Standard rescue is systematic, room by room, slow and thorough. That takes hours. We don't have hours. We need speed over thoroughness. Meaning we use the PA system to direct survivors to extraction points. We don't search the whole building. We make them come to us. Merrick shook her head. The PA system is hardwired to the main security office. That's in the center of the building. The gas concentration there is highest. You'd die before you reached it. Not if we get there fast enough. Declan pointed to the building's roof. The security office has external roof access. Emergency escape. We rope down from the helicopter, breach through the roof, hit the PA system, direct survivors to the nearest clear exits. Then we hold those exits open while people evacuate. That's insane, Merrick said flatly. The roof breach alone could take 15 minutes. You'd be inside with no backup, no exit strategy if things go wrong. Things are already wrong, Colonel. This just gives us a chance to make them less wrong. Evangeline was already moving. Get me a pilot. Get me rappelling gear. Get me that security office layout. Senator, you can't seriously be considering. I'm not considering, Colonel. I'm doing. That's 300 American citizens in there. People who work for defense contractors I'm supposed to oversee. People who trusted that their workplace was safe. I'm not leaving them to die because it's too risky. You're a senator, not a rescue specialist. Today I'm both. She looked at Declan. You're with me. He should say no, should tell her this was crazy, that senators didn't do rooftop breaches and toxic rescue operations, that she had too much to lose, too much to risk. But looking at her face, he saw the same determination he had seen 7 years ago, when she'd gripped his hand and refused to let go even as the world burned around them. She wasn't asking permission. She was telling him the decision was made. I'm with you, he said, but I lead once we're inside. You follow my orders exactly. No debate, no discussion. You do what I say when I say it. Agreed. She extended her hand. Agreed. They shook. Her grip was stronger than he expected. The next 10 minutes were controlled chaos. Hazmat suits, communication gear, rope systems. Declan checked every seal on Evangeline's suit twice, made sure her respirator was functioning, showed her the emergency oxygen reserves. If the suit breaches, he said, you have maybe 2 minutes before the chlorine gets through. You'll feel it burn your skin first. If that happens, you pull this cord. Emergency oxygen floods the suit, gives you another 60 seconds to get out. And if I can't get out in 60 seconds, then the suit becomes your coffin. But let's not plan for that scenario. The helicopter lifted off again. This time just 4 people. Evangeline, Declan, the pilot, and Colonel Merrick, who'd insisted on coming, despite her own advice against it. They rose above the building, the rooftop spread below them in the harsh glare of spotlights. Ventilation units, exhaust fans, and they're marked in faded yellow paint the emergency hatch to the security office. 30 seconds, the pilot called. Declan clipped onto the rope, tested the friction brake, looked at Evangeline. Her face was pale behind the helmet visor, but her eyes held steady. You scared? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. You buy every time. Fear means you're paying attention. What do you do with it? The fear. The yet. Let it make you sharp, make you careful, make you alive. 10 seconds. They positioned at the open door. Wind tore at them. Below the roof waited 40 feet down. Evangeline took the rope in trembling hands. I've never done this before, she said. I know, just like I showed you. Brake with your right hand, control your descent. I'll be right behind you. Go, she jumped. For one terrifying moment, she dropped in free fall. Then her hands clenched on the brake, and she jerked to a controlled slide. Too fast, she was going too fast. But she was going, down the rope, toward the roof, toward 300 people who needed help. Declan followed. The rope sang through his gloves. 40 feet disappeared in seconds. His boots hit the roof with a hollow thud. Evangeline landed beside him, stumbled, caught herself. You did good, he told her. I'm going to throw up later. Later works. Right now we move. The emergency hatch was secured with a padlock. Standard industrial grade. Declan had bolt cutters. 3 seconds and the lock fell away. The hatch opened on screaming hinges. Below darkness, thick as mud. And through it the sickly sweet smell of chlorine, even through his respirator filters. Stay close, he said. One hand on my shoulder, don't let go. They descended the ladder down into hell. The security office was exactly as bad as Declan expected. Visibility measured in inches. The chlorine fog so thick it looked like they were underwater. Emergency lights gave off diffuse red glows that did nothing but create shadows. But the PA system was still powered. That was something. Declan found the control panel by feel more than sight. Flipped switches, prayed the speaker still worked, keyed the microphone. Attention all personnel. This is emergency rescue. If you can hear this, listen carefully. Chlorine gas has flooded the main production areas. Exit through the north loading bay. I repeat, north loading bay. It's marked in green. Find the green lights and follow them. Move now, move fast. This facility is not safe. His voice echoed through the building, bouncing off walls and machinery, hopefully reaching 300 terrified people. Behind him, Evangeline was on her radio. Colonel Merrick were at the PA system, directing survivors to North Loading Bay. Get teams there now. Anyone who comes out will need immediate medical attention. Copy that, Senator. Teams moving. Also send respirators to the loading bay. Drop them inside the door. People will need them to make it through the gas. A pause. Senator, that means opening the loading bay. It'll flood that whole section with chlorine. Better one section flooded than 300 people dead. Do it. Yes, ma'am. Declan keyed the PA again. North loading bay, green lights, emergency respirators will be available at the exit. Put them on before you enter the gas. Seal them tight. You'll have about 5 minutes to reach safety. Move in groups. Help anyone who falls. Do not stop. Do not go back. Get out. Then they waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2. Declan's suit was already feeling warm, the chlorine eating at the seals, the chemical reaction generating heat. They didn't have long. Should we go to the loading bay, Evangeline asked. Help guide people out. No, we hold here. If the PA system fails, they lose direction. We're more valuable maintaining communication. 3 minutes. His radio crackled. Merrick's voice tight with emotion. Senator, we have people coming out. First group just hit the loading bay. 20, maybe 30 of them. They're putting on respirators. They're moving. Relief flooded through Declan. Keep counting, Colonel. I want numbers. 4 minutes. 50 people out. No 60. Senator, they're streaming out now. Your directions worked. Evangeline's hand found his shoulder. Squeezed. He could hear her crying behind the respirator. 5 minutes. 100. More coming. Senator, I think we're getting them all. 6 minutes. Declan's suit alarm began to chirp. Seal degradation. The chlorine was breaking through. He felt the first burn on his left forearm. Not bad yet, but building. We need to go, he said. Not yet. Not until everyone's out. Eva, our suits are failing. Then they fail. I'm not leaving until I know they're safe. 7 minutes. 200 out. Senator, you need to evacuate. Your suit telemetry shows critical seal failure. Noted and ignored. Keep counting. 8 minutes. The burn on Declan's arm was spreading up toward his elbow, down toward his wrist. He could feel similar burns starting on his legs. The suit was done. Maybe 2 minutes left before it failed completely. Ava. Not yet. Ava, we're out of time. I said not yet. 9 minutes. 250. Senator, please. You're going to die in there. Then I die doing something that matters. Keep counting. The burns were everywhere now. Declan's skin felt like it was on fire. The emergency oxygen reserve kicked in automatically. 60 seconds. That's all he had. Senator Ashford, Merrick's voice had gone cold, professional, the tone of someone preparing to report casualties. Final count is 287. We're not seeing anyone else. I'm calling it. Exit now or I'm sending teams in to extract you by force. Evangeline keyed her radio. Acknowledged, we're coming out. They made it to the ladder, started climbing. Declan could barely feel the rungs through his gloves. The chemical burns had gone past pain into numbness. That wasn't good. That meant nerve damage. Halfway up, Evangeline stumbled. Her foot slipped. She dropped 2 rungs before catching herself. Keep moving, Declan urged. Don't stop. Don't think. Just climb. The roof hatch was a square of night sky above them. Freedom measured in feet. Declan pushed Evangeline up ahead of him. If someone was going to fall better, it'd be him. She emerged into the open air. Declan followed. His emergency oxygen had run out. He was breathing suit air now, air contaminated with chlorine vapor. Each breath burned like inhaling fire. Hands grabbed them. Merrick and her team. They dragged Declan and Evangeline away from the hatch, started emergency decontamination procedures. Cold water, chemical neutralizers. The shock of it made Declan gasp. They stripped his suit off. His exposed skin was red, blistered in places. Chemical burns painting patterns across his arms and legs. But he was breathing. He was alive. Medics swarmed him, started IV lines, administered burns treatment. Someone was talking, but the words didn't register. His head felt stuffed with cotton. Declan. He turned his head. Evangeline sat on a stretcher 3 feet away, her own suit removed, her skin showing burns, but not as bad as his. She'd gotten out faster, hadn't taken as much exposure. 287, she said. We saved 287 people. 13 didn't make it. 287 did, because you knew what to do, because you were willing to risk everything. Tears cut tracks through the soot on her face. Thank you. Thank me when this is over. When the politics start. When people ask why a senator and a disgraced SEAL were playing hero instead of leaving it to professionals. She smiled. It held no humor. Let them ask. I have my answer ready. The medics wanted to transport them to the hospital. Evangeline refused. Not yet. Not until I know everyone's stable. Senator, you have second-degree chemical burns, which will still be there in an hour. Right now, I need to see those people, the ones we saved. I need to know they're okay. They set up a triage area in the parking lot. 287 people in various states of chlorine exposure. Some walking, some on stretchers. All alive. Evangeline moved among them. Declan watched from his stretcher. She shook hands, spoke quietly with each person, learned their names, asked about their families. This wasn't a photo opportunity. The news cameras weren't even here yet. This was just her, being present, being human. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, approached Evangeline's stretcher. She held her father's hand. The man's eyes were bloodshot from chlorine exposure. But he was standing. He was okay. "Are you the senator?" the girl asked. "I am." "Did you save my daddy?" Evangeline glanced at Declan. Back to the girl. "We tried to help, but your daddy saved himself. He was very brave. He said you came into the poison air, that you could have died. Well, sometimes we have to do scary things to help people." The girl held out something, a drawing, crude crayon work, 2 stick figures in what might be spacesuits. "I drew you and the other man. You're heroes." Evangeline took the drawing with trembling hands, studied it like it was a Rembrandt. "Thank you. This is beautiful. Can I keep it?" The girl nodded, then hugged Evangeline, just threw her small arms around the senator and held on. Declan saw Evangeline's face, saw the cracks in her armor, the tears she'd been holding back. She hugged the girl back, let herself be human for just a moment. Then her phone rang. She answered, listened. Her expression shifted, hardened. How many? I see. Thank you for informing me." She ended the call, looked at Declan. "We have a problem." "What kind?" "The political kind. Senator Blackwell just convened an emergency session. They're voting on whether to censure me for today's actions, possibly remove me from committee chair." "Can they do that?" "If they have the votes, they can do anything." She stood, wavered, caught herself. "I need to get back to D.C. You need a hospital. I need to save my career. The hospital can wait." She looked at Merrick. "Colonel, I need emergency transport to the Capitol. Now, Tamad." "Senator, you're in no condition." "That wasn't a request, Colonel. That was an order. Get me to Washington, or I'll commandeer a vehicle and drive myself." As they flew back to Washington, Evangeline received another text. This one made her pause. It was from a staffer she trusted completely. "Senator Blackwell has been in closed meetings all day. He's been building this coalition for weeks. The chemical rescue just gave him the excuse he was waiting for. He's arguing you exceeded constitutional authority, endangered federal personnel, violated chain of command. The votes are there. I'm sorry." She showed Declan the message. "He's been planning this," Declan said quietly, "waiting for you to make one move he could twist into overreach. Then I gave him exactly what he wanted. No, you saved 287 lives. That's what you did. If he wants to spin that as overreach, let him trim on." 20 minutes later, they were airborne again. Declan had refused to stay behind. Against medical advice, he'd signed himself out and followed Evangeline onto the helicopter. "You don't have to come," she'd said. "Yes, I do. You went into that building for me. 7 years ago and tonight. I'm not letting you face this alone." Now they sat in the cabin as the helicopter raced through the night. Evangeline had changed into a spare suit someone had found. It didn't fit well. The sleeves were too long. The jacket hung loose. But it would do. She was on her tablet reading transcripts of the emergency session. Her face grew darker with each page. "They're saying I exceeded my authority, put responders at risk for a publicity stunt, violated safety protocols, wasted federal resources." She looked up. "Blackwell is calling for a full investigation. He wants me removed from Intelligence Committee chair pending the outcome. He's afraid of you." "What?" "Think about it. You're young, popular. You just saved nearly 300 people on national news. That makes you dangerous to the old guard. People like Blackwell have run this town for 40 years. They don't like change, don't like someone showing them up. So this is retaliation. This is politics. They can't beat you on substance. So they'll try to destroy you on procedure." The helicopter began its descent toward the Capitol. Below Washington, D.C. glittered in the darkness. Monuments and power, history and corruption, all of it wrapped together in white marble and backroom deals. I'm going to fight them, Evangeline said quietly. I'm going to walk into that chamber, and I'm going to make them explain why saving lives is grounds for censure. They'll twist it, make it about protocol, about you being reckless. Then I'll twist it back, make it about them being cowards. She met his eyes. Will you testify? Tell them what happened? Why we did what we did? I'm not a senator. I don't have standing. You have something better. You have credibility. You're a decorated veteran who lost everything for doing the right thing. If you stand up in that chamber and tell your story, they'll listen. Or they'll crucify me for daring to speak. Maybe, probably. But Declan, tonight you proved something. You proved that one person choosing to act can save hundreds of lives. I need the Senate to see that. I need them to understand that integrity matters more than protocol. The helicopter touched down. Capitol Police were waiting. Evangeline stepped out into the rotor wash. Declan followed. As they walked toward the Capitol building and news cameras tracked them. Reporters shouted questions. Evangeline ignored them all. She moved with purpose, with certainty, a woman walking into battle. They entered through a side entrance, moved through corridors Declan didn't recognize. Staffers parted before them like water. Word had spread. The young senator who'd defied orders to save lives was back, and she was furious. The Senate chamber doors stood ahead, tall, imposing. Behind them, 100 senators waited to pass judgment. Evangeline paused at the threshold, took a breath, looked at Declan. Once we go through those doors, there's no going back. They're going to attack me, attack you, drag up every sealed file, every mistake, every moment of vulnerability. Are you ready for that? Declan thought about 7 years of running, 7 years of hiding from his past, 7 years of being nobody. And he thought about 287 people breathing clean air tonight because someone had chosen to act. I'm ready, he said. Evangeline pushed open the doors. The Senate chamber spread before them, galleries packed with observers, the press section overflowing, and on the floor, senators arranged in their semicircle. Most looked uncomfortable. Some looked angry. And at the center, Senator Cornelius Blackwell stood at the lectern, waiting. Senator Ashford, he said, his voice carried through the chamber with practiced ease. How good of you to join us. We were just discussing your actions tonight. Discuss away, Senator. I have nothing to hide. Don't you unauthorized use of federal resources. Violation of established safety protocols. Risking the life of a sitting senator for what amounts to a publicity stunt. 287 people are alive tonight because of that stunt. 13 are dead. 13 American citizens who might have survived if you'd waited for proper rescue procedures. The words hit like a slap. Evangeline's face went pale, but she didn't back down. Proper procedures called for waiting 6 to 12 hours for the gas to dissipate. In that time, everyone inside would have died. All 300. Instead, 287 are breathing. 13 is a tragedy, but 300 would have been a massacre. You can't know that. I know that chlorine gas at 800 parts per million is lethal in minutes, not hours. I know that those people had no time. I know that someone had to act. Someone, but not you. You're a senator, not a rescue specialist. You put yourself at unnecessary risk. You put others at risk covering for your recklessness. I put myself at the same risk I asked others to take. No more, no less. That's called leadership, Senator Blackwell. Though I understand the concept might be foreign to you. Gasps rippled through the chamber. You didn't talk to Cornelius Blackwell that way. Not if you valued your political future. Blackwell's face flushed purple. You arrogant child. You think one dramatic rescue makes you untouchable. You think the rules don't apply to you because your name is Ashford. I think the rules were written to serve people, not protect cowards. Cowards. Blackwell's voice rose. I've served this nation for 30 years. I've written legislation that saved thousands of lives. What have you done except trade on your family name and take reckless risks? I've done what you won't, what you can't. I've chosen people over politics. Silence fell, thick, absolute. Then from the back of the chamber, a voice, old, gravelly, carrying the weight of decades. She's right. Every head turned. General Thaddeus Cross stood in the gallery. Retired now, but his uniform still carried 4 stars. His chest still bore enough ribbons to outfit a platoon. His face still commanded respect. He descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. When he reached the floor, he turned to face the assembled senators. "I've known the Ashford family for 40 years, he said. "I served with Evangeline's grandfather in Vietnam, her father in Desert Storm. I've watched this family's relationship with duty and sacrifice across 3 generations. And tonight I watched Senator Ashford do something I haven't seen in decades of military and political service." He paused, let the silence build. "I watched her choose integrity over safety, people over protocol. I watched her risk her life because 300 Americans needed help and no one else was willing to act. And it reminded me of something I'd forgotten." General Cross turned to Evangeline. His eyes, hard as flint, softened slightly. "7 years ago, my grandson died in Atlanta, Nathaniel Cross, 19 years old. He died trying to evacuate civilians during the Ashford Dynasty bombing. For years, I blamed that attack, blamed the chaos, blamed the people who needed rescuing for costing me my grandson." His voice cracked, just slightly. "But tonight, watching Senator Ashford, I realized something. Nathaniel didn't die because of the people he was saving. He died doing exactly what he'd been taught, what I taught him. That duty means sacrifice. That honor means choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. He died being exactly the man I raised him to be." Tears ran down the general's weathered face. He made no move to wipe them away. "And the man who pulled Senator Ashford from the rubble that day, while my grandson was dying in another part of that building, that man made the same choice. He chose duty over survival. And for that choice, he was court-martialed, discharged, destroyed. Because we, the institution, decided that following orders mattered more than saving lives." Cross turned to face Blackwell. "So when you stand there and accuse Senator Ashford of recklessness, of arrogance, of trading on her family name, you're doing the same thing we did to that SEAL 7 years ago. You're punishing someone for having the courage we lack. You're destroying someone for showing us what we should be." He gestured toward Declan. "That man's name is Declan Thorne. He's in this chamber tonight. And I want him to tell you what happened 7 years ago. I want you to hear what we did to him, what this institution does to people who choose right over expedient. And then I want you to vote. I want you to decide if we're going to make the same mistake twice." Every eye in the chamber turned to Declan. The press cameras swiveled. The senators leaned forward. Evangeline looked at him, a question in her eyes. He could refuse, could walk away, could let this moment pass and preserve whatever anonymity he had left. But General Cross had just given him something he hadn't had in 7 years. Validation, acknowledgement, the understanding that what he'd done mattered. He stepped forward, moved to the center of the floor, stood in the space where history was made and broken, and he began to speak. "My name is Declan Thorne. 7 years ago, I was a Navy SEAL. I had a career, a future, a purpose. Then one afternoon in Atlanta, I heard someone crying in a building that was supposed to be empty. I could have followed orders, could have maintained the evacuation perimeter, could have left it to someone else." He met Evangeline's eyes across the chamber. "But I didn't, because orders said one thing and conscience said another. And in that moment, I chose to be the kind of person who helps, rather than the kind who walks away." He turned slowly, making eye contact with senators, with the press, with history. "For that choice, I lost everything. My rank, my career, my future. I spent 7 years driving trucks because it was the only work nobody asked questions about. I thought I'd made a mistake, thought I'd thrown away my life for nothing." He gestured toward Evangeline. "But tonight I watched the girl I pulled from that rubble stand up to power. I watched her risk everything to save people she'd never met. I watched her prove that the choice I made 7 years ago mattered. That choosing people over protocol isn't weakness. It's the only real strength any of us have." His voice grew stronger, clearer. "So when you vote to censure Senator Ashford, you're not just punishing her. You're telling every person in this country that doing the right thing doesn't matter. That following orders is more important than saving lives. That power protects power and everyone else can burn. The chamber was absolutely silent. 287 people are alive tonight. 287 families will see their loved ones again. 287 futures were saved because Senator Ashford refused to accept that protocol mattered more than people. He looked directly at Blackwell. If that's grounds for censure, then this institution doesn't deserve her. But I think you know that. I think you're scared of her, scared of what she represents, scared that she's showing you what leadership actually looks like. He stepped back, finished. The silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then someone in the gallery began to clap. Slow, deliberate. Others joined. Within seconds, the applause was deafening. Senators shifted uncomfortably. The press scribbled frantically. Evangeline stood, walked to where Declan stood, extended her hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. Too quiet for anyone else to hear. "For 7 years ago, for tonight, for this." They shook. Then, breaking every rule of decorum, she pulled him into a brief hug. The press cameras exploded with flashes. She released him, turned to face the chamber, to face Blackwell. "Senator Blackwell, you called this emergency session to censure me, to question my judgment, to protect your power from someone who threatens it. So let's vote. Let's see if this chamber believes in integrity or just talks about it." Blackwell looked around, saw the gallery still applauding, saw his fellow senators avoiding eye contact, saw the political calculations shifting beneath his feet. "The chair recognizes that emotions are running high," he said carefully. "Perhaps we should table this discussion until cooler heads prevail." "Table it?" Evangeline's laugh was sharp. "You called an emergency session, Senator. You demanded immediate action. So let's have it. Vote now. Censure me for saving lives or admit this was political theater designed to protect your declining relevance." Blackwell's jaw worked. His hands gripped the lectern white-knuckled. Then slowly he nodded. "The motion to censure is withdrawn," he said. Each word seemed to cost him. "This session is adjourned." He stepped down from the lectern, walked toward the exit, paused beside Evangeline. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "No," she agreed. "It's just beginning." He left. His supporters followed. Within minutes, the chamber was emptying. Evangeline sagged slightly, the adrenaline draining away. Declan caught her elbow. "You okay?" "No, yes, I don't know." She laughed, shaky, exhausted. "We won. Why doesn't it feel like winning?" "Because this was one battle. The war's just starting." "War." She considered the word. "Is that what this is? You're trying to change how this city works. Change always means war. But tonight you proved you can fight it." They walked toward the exit together. Staffers approached with tablets and questions. Evangeline waved them off. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tonight I need air." They found their way to a restricted balcony overlooking the National Mall. The Washington Monument gleamed white in floodlights. The Lincoln Memorial sat solid in the distance. Above, stars struggled against lighted pollution. Evangeline leaned against the railing. "I've stood on this balcony 100 times. Usually after votes, after long debates. It's where I come to remember why this matters." "And does it matter?" She turned to look at him. 7 years ago, you made me a promise. You said you wouldn't forget me. I made you one too. I said I'd find you, that I'd make it right. You did. My record is cleared. I can work again." "That's not what I meant." She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume under the antiseptic smell of chemical burns. "I meant I'd prove that what you did mattered. That choosing right over wrong isn't weakness. That one person can change everything." "Eva, I'm not finished." Her eyes held his. "Tonight, working with you, saving those people, it felt like the first real thing I've done in 7 years. Everything else has been politics, maneuvering, compromise. But tonight was pure. It was right. And I want more of that. More rescues, more honesty, more purpose, more—" Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again. With visible reluctance, she answered. "This better be critical, Isolde." Her sister's voice came through. Declan could hear the urgency even from 3 feet away. "Ava, we have a situation. The SS Atlantic Hope, cargo ship off Virginia. Engine failure. It's taking it underwater. 800 personnel on board. They're calling for emergency rescue, but there's a jurisdictional problem. What kind of problem? The ship's in disputed waters. The Navy says it's outside their operational zone. Coast Guard says it's a military contractor issue. Private companies won't respond without liability clearance. And Eva, they're saying the ship has maybe 6 hours before it sinks. Evangeline closed her eyes. 800 people. 800. And sister, if they die because of bureaucratic nonsense after what you did tonight, the press will crucify everyone involved. Where's the ship? 90 miles off Virginia Beach, storm rolling in, seas building. This is going to be bad. Evangeline ended the call, looked at Declan. How much do you have left in the tank? For what? One more rescue, one more chance to prove this matters. Declan thought about his burned arms, his exhausted body, his complete lack of official authority to do anything. Then he thought about 800 people on a sinking ship, waiting for help that wasn't coming. How fast can you get us to Virginia Beach? She smiled. It was tired. It was determined. It was everything he had seen 7 years ago in a burning building. Faster than protocol says is safe. Let's go save some lives. They left the balcony together. Behind them, Washington, D.C. glittered in false beauty. Ahead, somewhere in the Atlantic, 800 people needed help. And for the second time in one night, Evangeline Ashford and Declan Thorne were going to give it to them. Because that's what you did when you chose people over politics. You helped. Even when it cost everything. Especially then. The Coast Guard helicopter cut through pre-dawn darkness at maximum speed. Below, the Atlantic Ocean rolled in vast swells. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon like an invading army. The wind carried salt spray and the promise of violence. Evangeline Ashford sat beside the open door, wind tearing at her borrowed flight suit. 90 miles offshore, the SS Atlantic Hope was dying. 800 souls aboard. Military contractors, civilian crew, engineers and technicians and cooks and maintenance workers. All of them sharing the same fate as water-flooded compartments and dragged the ship deeper with each passing minute. And no one was coming to save them. The Navy had declined. Outside operational parameters. The Coast Guard had hesitated, jurisdictional uncertainty. Private rescue companies had lawyers draft liability releases that would take hours to finalize. Hours the Atlantic Hope didn't have. So Evangeline had made a decision that would either save 800 lives or end her career. She'd invoked emergency senatorial authority, a power rarely used, never tested. Technically, as chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, she had discretionary command over federal assets in situations involving national security. The Atlantic Hope carried defense contractors. That made it her jurisdiction. Barely, maybe. If you squinted at the regulations and prayed no one looked too closely. She'd ordered this helicopter, commandeered Coast Guard rescue swimmers, demanded Navy vessels divert to provide support, all without consulting the Pentagon, without clearance from the Secretary of Defense, without permission from anyone except her own conscience. Declan sat across from her, his arms still bandaged from the chemical burns, his face exhausted beyond anything sleep could fix. But when she'd asked if he was coming, he hadn't hesitated, just nodded and followed her to the helicopter. You know this is insane, he said over the rotor noise. What you're doing, the legal authority is questionable at best. If this goes wrong, then I'll face the consequences. But I'm not letting 800 people drown because lawyers need time to consult precedent. Blackwell's going to crucify you for this. Let him try. She checked her tablet. Satellite imagery showed the Atlantic Hope listing 20 degrees to starboard, water pouring through a hull breach below the waterline. The ship had hours at most, maybe less if the storm hit before they could evacuate. Her phone buzzed. Text from Isolde. Senate emergency session called. Blackwell filing articles of impeachment. Says you've exceeded constitutional authority. Eva, he's going for removal from office. Evangeline read the message twice. Let the implications sink in. Impeachment, not censure, not a committee investigation. Full removal proceedings. If Blackwell succeeded, her career was over. The Ashford legacy destroyed. Everything her father and grandfather had built ended by her choosing to save lives. She typed back, let him file. I'll be busy. Declan watched her face. Bad news, Ree. Blackwell's filing impeachment articles. Abuse of power, exceeding constitutional authority, the usual. Eva, it doesn't matter, Declan. I made a choice. I knew the cost. If saving 800 lives means losing my seat, then I lose my seat. At least I'll know what I gave it up for. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled through the headset. Senator, we have visual on the Atlantic Hope. You need to see this. Evangeline moved to the cockpit. Dawn was breaking, pale light spreading across the water. And there, 3 miles ahead, the Atlantic Hope wallowed in heavy seas. The ship was massive, 600 feet of steel and cargo, but it sat wrong in the water. The list had increased to 30 degrees, the starboard side already kissing the waves. Lifeboats hung useless in their davits, cant angles, making them impossible to launch. People crowded the upper decks, tiny figures in orange life vests, waiting, hoping, running out of time. How long? Evangeline asked. The pilot checked his instruments. Ship that size with that list 2 hours, maybe 3. But if the storm hits first minutes, those swells will roll her right over. What rescue assets do we have? 2 Coast Guard cutters, 3 Navy destroyers you commandeered. They're 40 minutes out. We have 4 helicopters, including this one. Maybe 20 rescue swimmers total. Senator, the math doesn't work. Even if we had all day, we can't evacuate 800 people with what we've got. Evangeline's mind raced. 20 swimmers, 4 helicopters, 2 hours. The numbers were impossible. You couldn't save 800 people with those resources. Not in calm seas, certainly not with the storm rolling in. Unless you change the equation. Get me a direct line to the Atlantic Hope's captain, she ordered. 90 seconds later, a voice came through her headset. Rough, Texas accent, scared but holding it together. This is Captain Webb. Who am I talking to? Captain, this is Senator Evangeline Ashford's Senate Intelligence Committee. I'm 3 miles from your position with rescue assets inbound. I need your situation report. Senator, confusion bled through the fear. Ma'am, with respect, we need the Coast Guard, not Congress. You have both, Captain. Now report. The steel in her voice cut through his hesitation. Hull breach, starboard side below the waterline. We've sealed what we can, but water's still coming in. List is 32 degrees and increasing. I've got 819 souls on board. Lifeboats are fouled. I can't launch them at this angle. We're abandoning to life rafts, but in these seas, that's just trading one death for another. Captain, help is coming, but I need you to do something for me. Anything, ma'am. I need you to organize your people, not by department, not by seniority, by capability. I want everyone who can swim sorted from those who can't. I want the injured and elderly identified. I want a command structure that can operate during chaos. Can you do that? A pause. Yes, ma'am. Give me 10 minutes. You have 5. Ashford out. She switched channels. All rescue aircraft, this is Ashford. We're changing protocol. Standard rescue is 1 at a time. We don't have time for standard. We're going to use the life rafts as staging platforms. Swimmers deploy to rafts. Multiple pickups per run. We prioritize non-swimmers and injured. Everyone else swims to rafts and waits for pickup. Clear, silence on the channel. Then one of the Coast Guard pilots, Senator, that's not standard procedure. The risk is 800 dead if we follow procedure. I'm taking responsibility. Follow my orders or file a complaint later. Your choice, Another pause. Yes, ma'am. All aircraft confirm new protocol. Declan had moved up beside Eva. You just rewrote the Coast Guard rescue manual. I just chose pragmatism over protocol. If it works, they'll call it innovation. If it fails, they'll call it recklessness. And you're okay with that? She looked at him, really looked. Saw 7 years of being punished for doing right. Saw the scars literal and metaphorical. Saw a man who'd given everything and received nothing. 7 years ago, you taught me something, Declan. You taught me that when you're faced with an impossible choice, you don't choose the safe option. You choose the right one, and you live with the consequences. The helicopter descended, spray whipped through the open door. The Atlantic Hope grew larger. People on deck waved frantically. The ship groaned, metal on metal, the sound of something dying. They hovered 50 feet above the forward deck. Declan was already hooking into the rescue harness. I'm going down. I can help organize the evacuation from deck level. You're not a rescue swimmer. You're not certified for... Ava, we've already thrown out the rule book. One more violation won't matter. She wanted to argue, wanted to order him to stay safe. But he was right. They needed every capable person. And Declan Thorne was nothing if not capable. Go, but Declan, she caught his arm. Come back. I didn't find you after 7 years just to lose you to the Atlantic. He smiled, tired, real. I'll do my best. Then he was dropping, down through spray and wind, landing on the tilted deck with the grace of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. People swarmed him immediately, desperate for leadership, for hope, for someone who looked like they knew what they were doing. Evangeline watched him take command, watched him organize chaos into purpose, watched him be the SEAL he'd been trained to be, the man he'd never stopped being despite 7 years of the world trying to convince him otherwise. The rescue began. It was chaos, beautiful, terrible, necessary chaos. Helicopters descended in rotation. Rescue swimmers dropped into angry seas. Life rafts deployed from the Atlantic Hope, each one holding 20 people. Swimmers shepherded the rafts. Helicopters pulled people up in groups of 3 and 4. Not standard, not safe, but it was working. The Coast Guard cutters arrived, positioned themselves leeward of the sinking ship, creating a sheltered zone where the life rafts could cluster. Navy destroyers formed a perimeter, their crews launching small boats to retrieve swimmers. Evangeline's helicopter became command center. She coordinated 7 aircraft, 30 swimmers, 4 ships, 800 lives, all of it happening across 3 square miles of violent ocean, and it was working. First 100 evacuated in 30 minutes, second 100 in 25. The new protocol was faster, more efficient, more dangerous, yes, but when the alternative was death danger became acceptable. Then her phone rang, Colonel Merrick's voice, tight, urgent. Senator, we have a problem. The impeachment articles went to full Senate vote. Blackwell forced emergency consideration. He's invoking national security concerns, saying you've created a constitutional crisis. Let him invoke whatever he wants. I'm busy. Senator, he has the votes. If you lose this vote, you're removed from office immediately. All the authority you're using to coordinate this rescue evaporates. The Navy will recall their ships. The Coast Guard will revert to standard protocol. This rescue stops. Ice flooded Evangeline's veins. How long? The vote is in 90 minutes. If you're going to stop this, you need to be in that chamber. She looked out at the Atlantic Hope. Still 400 people on board. The ship listing worse. 38 degrees now. The deck almost vertical. People clinging to railings. One good wave and she'd roll completely. I can't leave, not with 400 people still out here. Then you lose the vote. Eva, they're going to remove you. Everything you've built, everything the Ashford name stands for. Gone. Tell Isolde to delay the vote. Parliamentary procedure. Filibuster. Whatever she can do. She's trying, but Blackwell has the votes to invoke cloture. He's going to force this through. Evangeline closed her eyes, felt the weight of impossible choices. She could leave now, fly to D.C., fight for her career, let someone else coordinate the rescue, hope they could maintain the pace without her authority holding it together. Or she could stay, save 400 more lives, and watch her career burn. Tell Isolde I love her. Tell her to fight as hard as she can, but I'm not leaving these people. Merrick's voice cracked. Yes, ma'am, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. History will decide that, Colonel. I just have to live with it. She ended the call, turned back to the rescue, pushed the Senate from her mind. There would be time later to mourn her career. Right now, people needed saving. Declan's voice crackled through the radio. Eva, I'm sending up the next group. 20 people, mostly elderly and injured. But we're running out of time. The ship's breaking up. I can hear the hull fracturing. How many left on board? 300. We're loading rafts as fast as we can, But the deck angle is making it nearly impossible. People are slipping, falling. I've lost 3 overboard already. 3 dead, the number hit like a fist. After everything, after all this effort, people were still dying. Keep going, Declan. You're doing everything you can. It's not enough. It never is. But we don't stop trying. The next hour was hell. The storm hit early, swells building to 20 feet, wind gusting to 40 knots. Helicopters struggled to maintain hover. Swimmers fought exhaustion and hypothermia. People in the water screamed for help. But they kept going. 250 evacuated. 275. 300. The Atlantic Hope was dying. The list had reached 45 degrees. The starboard rail was underwater. The port side pointed at the sky. People clung to anything bolted down. The groaning of stressed metal was constant now, loud enough to hear over the storm. Declan was still on deck, coordinating the final evacuations, loading rafts, helping people into harnesses. His voice came through steady, calm, professional. But Evangeline could hear the exhaustion underneath. Final raft launching, he reported. 50 people. That leaves 20 on deck, including me. We'll take the next helicopter pickup. Negative, you come up now. Let someone else get the last group. Eva, they need help getting into harnesses. The deck is almost vertical. If I leave, people die. If you stay, you might die. Occupational hazard. I'll be fine. She wanted to order him up, wanted to pull rank and demand he evacuate, but she knew him well enough now to know he wouldn't listen. Not while people needed help. Be careful was all she said. Always am. 325 evacuated. 340, 360. The ship was coming apart. Bulkheads collapsing, superstructure twisting. Any moment now she would roll, and anyone still aboard would be trapped, dragged down as thousands of tons of steel sank into the Atlantic. Evangeline's helicopter moved in for final pickup. Declan and 19 others clung to the port rail, the only part of the ship still above water. Waves crashed over them, each one threatening to sweep someone away. The rescue basket lowered. Wind spun it like a toy. Declan grabbed it, loaded an elderly woman, then another person, then a third. The basket rose, came back. He loaded more, every second counting, every moment borrowed from physics and fate. Her phone rang again. Isolde's voice, crying. Eva, I'm sorry. The vote failed, 63 to 37. You're removed from office effective immediately. I tried. God, I tried everything. But Blackwell had the votes. Evangeline felt something inside her break. Not her resolve, not her determination, but something else. Some last connection to the life she'd known, the career she'd built, the legacy she'd inherited. It's okay, Isolde. You did everything you could. What are you going to do? She watched Declan load another person into the basket, watched him work with mechanical efficiency, saving lives while her career died. I'm going to finish this rescue. Then I'm going to face whatever comes next. Eva, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I made my choice. I'd make it again. She ended the call, switched to the helicopter's external speakers, keyed the microphone so her voice would carry to the deck below. Declan, the vote failed. I'm removed from office. In about 30 seconds, the Navy is going to receive orders to withdraw. This rescue is over unless we finish it now. She saw him look up, saw him process what she'd said, saw the moment he understood what she'd sacrificed. How many people left, he asked. 12 on deck, plus you. Then let's get them out. The basket came down again. Declan loaded 3 people, sent it up. It came back. 3 more. Up again. Down. 3 more. Up. 4 people left, plus Declan. The Navy destroyers were already turning. Orders received. Withdrawal authorized. Without Evangeline's authority, this wasn't a sanctioned rescue anymore. Just a Coast Guard operation. And Coast Guard protocol said no rescue in these conditions. The helicopter pilot's voice, Ms. Ashford, I'm receiving orders to abort. We need to leave. 30 more seconds. That's all I need. Ma'am, I have direct orders. Evangeline reached for the emergency override panel. Federal law said only pilots could control rescue operations, but there was a fail-safe, an emergency senatorial override that allowed committee chairs to take direct control in matters of national security. She'd never used it, never even considered it. The override was designed for terrorist situations, hijackings, active threats to national security, but 800 lives at stake. That felt like national security to her. "Pilot, I'm activating emergency senatorial override," she said quietly. The legal authority might be gone in 30 seconds, but the physical controls still responded to her credentials for now. "Ma'am, that override is for terrorist situations. Declan Thorne is down there finishing an evacuation that will save 13 lives. If that's not an emergency worth overriding protocol, for then nothing is. You have a choice. Maintain hover for 30 more seconds, or I activate override and take control of this aircraft. Your call." The pilot's hands tightened on the controls. 5 seconds, 10. 30 seconds, ma'am, not a second more. The basket dropped. Declan loaded 2 people, paused. The final 2 were a man and a young sailor, maybe 20 years old, terrified, clinging to the rail. Declan pushed the young sailor into the basket, motioned for it to go up. The sailor protested, reached back, but Declan shook his head, gave the signal. The basket rose. 2 people left on deck, Declan and the older man. No time for another pickup. The ship was rolling, the final moments before she went under. "Declan, get in the water," Evangeline screamed. "Jump clear and swim. We'll pick you up." He was helping the other man into a life vest, making sure it was secure, making sure the man had a chance. "Declan," he looked up at her, through spray and storm and the rain that had started falling. Their eyes met, across 50 feet in 7 years and everything that had happened between. He smiled, just slightly, then shoved the other man off the deck into the water and disappeared into the ship's interior. "What are you doing?" The words tore from Evangeline's throat. "Get off that ship," his voice crackled back. "Emergency beacon, need to activate it manually. Controls are inside. We'll make sure rescue crews find everyone in the water." "You don't have time." "Then I better hurry." The Atlantic Hope groaned. A death cry of overstressed metal. The roll was accelerating. Any second now. Evangeline made a decision. "Lower me now." Ms. Ashford, she was already clipping into a harness. The crew chief looked like he might physically stop her, but something in her face made him step back. She dropped through the door. Wind and spray and chaos. The deck rushing up, she landed hard. The ship was almost vertical now. She clung to the rail, looked for the entrance Declan had used. There, a door hanging open, water pouring out. She went in. Inside was hell, tilted corridors, emergency lighting flickering, water knee-deep and rising. She waded forward, following instinct more than knowledge. "Declan," her voice echoed, swallowed by the groaning ship. "Declan." Then she heard it. The beacon. A high-pitched wail that would guide rescue crews to survivors. It was working. He'd done it. But where was he? She found him in the radio room, pinned under a filing cabinet that had broken loose. Water rising around him, his face pale, blood on his forehead. "Eva." He sounded dazed. "What are you doing here?" "Saving your stupid, heroic ass." She grabbed the cabinet, tried to lift. It didn't budge. "Help me. Push when I lift." "Eva, leave. The ship is going down." "Then we go down together. Now push." She lifted. He pushed. The cabinet shifted, inch by inch. He pulled himself free. His leg dragged. Something wrong with it. Broken, maybe. She got under his arm, took his weight. Together they struggled toward the door. The water was waist-deep now, the ship tilting further. 45 degrees, 50. They reached the deck. The helicopter hovered above, but too far. The ship had rolled too much. The basket couldn't reach. Evangeline looked at the water, 20 feet down to the Atlantic. Angry seas, storm swells, certain hypothermia, possible drowning. "Can you swim?" she asked. "With a broken leg, not well." "Then I'll swim for both of us." She pulled him to the rail. They climbed over, stood on the outside, the last moment before the jump. Thank you, Declan said, for finding me, for everything. Thank me when we're not dying. Ready? No. Me neither. Jump. They leaped. The water was shock cold, like hitting concrete. Evangeline kicked hard, kept Declan's head above water. His good leg helped, but the broken one dragged uselessly. Waves crashed over them, each one trying to separate them, each one a fight to stay together. The helicopter repositioned. The basket splashed down 10 feet away. Might as well have been a mile. Evangeline kicked, dragged Declan toward it, her muscles screaming, the cold sapping her strength. She thought about 7 years, about promises kept and promises broken, about a girl trapped under rubble and a man who'd stayed. She reached the basket, shoved Declan in first. He protested weakly. She ignored him, held the basket steady while he collapsed inside, then pulled herself up, her arms barely responding. Pure will forcing frozen muscles to work. She made it, collapsed beside him, gave the signal. They rose, up through spray and storm, away from the Atlantic Hope as she made her final roll. The great ship went under slowly, majestically, taking her secrets and her scars to the bottom, but leaving behind 782 living people, 782 futures, 782 reasons that all of this had mattered. The basket reached the helicopter. Hands pulled them inside, wrapped them in thermal blankets, started treating Declan's leg. Someone was talking, but Evangeline couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. She'd done it, lost everything, saved everyone, and somehow, impossibly, that felt like winning. The hospital room was too white, too clean, too quiet after the chaos of the ocean. Evangeline sat beside Declan's bed. He was sleeping, medicated, his leg in a cast, bandages covering new burns and old scars, but alive, breathing, surviving. The television on his wall showed news coverage, the Atlantic Hope rescue, the dramatic helicopter footage, the final moments as the ship went under, and through it all, images of Evangeline, the former senator who'd sacrificed everything to save strangers. Former senator. The words still felt unreal. The door opened. Isolde entered, her eyes red from crying. She sat on the other side of Declan's bed. "You're an idiot," Isolde said. "I know. They're calling you a hero. They called me a lot of things yesterday. Hero is new. Eva, the news networks have been playing your radio calls on repeat. The part where you jumped into the ocean, the emergency override. You're trending on every platform. They're calling it the rescue of the century." "How nice, I'm unemployed and viral." Isolde pulled out her tablet. She's unemployed, and maybe not former senator either. "What? 17 senators who voted to remove you have already issued public apologies. Senator Blackwell held a press conference 2 hours ago." She turned the tablet, showed Evangeline the footage. Blackwell at a podium, his face streaked with tears. "My son," he was saying, his voice breaking. "Christopher Blackwell, Navy contractor aboard the Atlantic Hope. We've been estranged for 8 years. Haven't spoken since his mother died. But last night when they pulled him from the water, the first call he made was to me." Blackwell paused, wiped his eyes. "He said, 'Dad, Senator Ashford saved my life. She jumped into the ocean to save us. She lost her career to save us. And I realized what I'd done. I'd destroyed a woman for having more courage than I'll ever possess, for choosing people over politics, for being the leader this country needs and I could never be." The camera zoomed in on Blackwell's face. "I'm withdrawing the impeachment articles. I'm asking the Senate to void the removal vote. It was politically motivated. I was wrong. Senator Ashford, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. And I'm co-sponsoring your Defense Integrity Act. It's time we chose integrity over comfort." The footage ended. Evangeline stared at the blank screen. "His son," she whispered. "Christopher Blackwell. You pulled him out of a life raft personally. He's in this hospital, 2 floors down, asking to meet you. Will the Senate void the vote? They already did. Unanimous consent. You're reinstated effective immediately." Evangeline felt tears coming. She didn't stop them. The bill, fast-tracked. Vote scheduled for next week. Eva, you did it. You actually changed Washington. Declan stirred, opened his eyes, looked at Evangeline. Please tell me we're not still in the ocean. She laughed through her tears. Hospital, Virginia Beach. We made it. All of us. 782 saved, 18 lost in the water. Better than we had any right to hope for. He nodded, closed his eyes again. Good. Worth it then. Isolde stood. I'll give you privacy. But Eva, there's more. The president wants to meet with you. He's offering you Secretary of Defense. No, both women stared at Declan. He opened his eyes, looked at Evangeline. Don't take it, he said. You're more powerful in the Senate. Secretaries serve at the president's pleasure. Senators answer to voters. Stay where you can't be fired for doing right. Pass your bill. Change the system. Evangeline considered, then nodded. Tell the president thank you, but I have work to do in the Senate. When they were alone, Evangeline moved closer to the bed, took Declan's hand. You scared me, going back into that ship. Had to activate the beacon. Someone else could have done it. No one else was there. Declan Thorne, chronic hero. It's going to get you killed someday. Maybe, but not today. They sat in silence. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. What happens now? Declan asked. Now, the bill gets voted on. If it passes, real reform, real accountability. That's not what I meant. She knew what he meant, the question hanging between them for 7 years. I don't know, she admitted. I'm a senator. What are you now, unemployed? Again, Sterling Logistics fired me when I went AWOL. So we're both starting over. Seems like. She leaned closer. I have a proposition. Another one. Your last proposition nearly got us killed. This one's safer, probably. The Civil Military Integration Office is being created, part of the Defense Integrity Act. It needs a director, someone who understands both military culture and civilian oversight, someone the public trusts. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you purpose, a chance to make the sacrifice mean something. Will I have to work with you? Daily, is that a problem? Might be, if I'm being honest. Her heart sank. Oh, I understand. Eva, you're not hearing me. It might be a problem because I'm not sure I can work with you every day and maintain professional boundaries. Not after everything. Understanding dawned slowly. Oh, yeah, oh. She studied his face, saw her own feelings reflected back. Then maybe we don't maintain professional boundaries, she said quietly. You're a senator. I'm about to be a federal employee. There are rules. She kissed him. It was gentle, careful, mindful of his injuries. But it was real. 7 years of waiting compressed into one perfect moment. When she pulled back, he was smiling. That was definitely against regulations. I've been breaking regulations all week. One more won't hurt. What about your career, the optics? Declan, I jumped into the Atlantic Ocean to save you. The optics ship has sailed. He laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. Broken ribs. Sorry, I'll save the funny material for when you're healed. They sat together as the sun set. Outside, the world kept turning. The Senate would vote. The bill would pass. Politics would continue. But in this room, two people who'd been broken by doing right had found something whole. 1 year later, Arlington National Cemetery spread in orderly rows of white stones, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. The March sun was warm, spring arriving early. Evangeline stood before a grave marker. Maxwell Ashford, her uncle, the man who'd tried to kill her. Declan stood beside her. No cane anymore. His leg had healed. He wore a suit. Director of Civil Military Integration looked good on him. I come here sometimes, Evangeline said, to remind myself what power without principle looks like. You're nothing like him. I'm exactly like him. Same family, same training, same ambition. The only difference is you. Me. She took his hand. You showed me what choosing right looks like. If I'd never met you, I might have become him. I don't believe that. Believe it. You taught me to value integrity. Everything I am starts with a civilian who chose conscience over career. Behind them, footsteps. General Thaddeus Cross approached. He wore his dress uniform. Still honored the dead. Senator Ashford, Director Thorne. General, Cross moved to another grave. 3 rows over, Nathaniel Cross. They'd helped Cross establish the scholarship. Full ride to any service academy. 60 recipients so far. I heard the news, Cross said. Defense Integrity Act showing results. 3 contractors shut down. 17 billion redirected to actual equipment. It's a start, Evangeline said. It's more than anyone else accomplished in 40 years. You did it. Isolde had been re-elected to Congress. 20 years old and already authoring reform legislation. The Ashford sisters, the press called them. Changing Washington one impossible fight at a time. They walked through the cemetery, past rows of stones, past history. There's something I need to tell you, Evangeline said. Sounds serious. Might be, depends on your reaction. She stopped walking, turned to face him. I'm pregnant. Declan went very still. Pregnant. About 3 months. A slow smile spread across his face. We're having a baby. We are, if you're okay with that. He kissed her, right there among the graves. I'm taking that as a yes, she said. That's definitely a yes, although we should probably get married. The optics, Declan Thorne, are you proposing? Not officially, but yes. Will you marry me? She pretended to consider. Do I have to take your last name? Keep Ashford. I'll be Mr. Evangeline Ashford. Good answer. Then yes. They stood among the graves, new life growing where death was remembered. Boy or girl, Declan asked. Too early to tell. Does it matter? Not even a little. They walked toward the exit. Evangeline had been re-elected in a landslide, 68%. The press was already speculating about presidential runs, but that was years away. Right now, she had a wedding to plan, a baby to prepare for, a husband who'd proven that heroism was about choosing right in small moments. What are you thinking? Declan asked. She looked back at Arlington's endless rows. That my uncle was wrong. Power isn't everything. It's nothing compared to this, compared to us, compared to building something that matters. She put his hand on her stomach. Ask me in 18 years when we've raised someone who believes the same thing, when they prove that what we started matters beyond just us. No pressure on the kid. They're half Ashford, half Thorne. Honor and stubbornness. They'll be fine. They walked through the gates together, 2 people who'd been broken and rebuilt, who'd lost everything and found something better. Evangeline Ashford had come to Washington as the youngest senator in history. She'd stay as something better, a leader who'd proven that power without principle was tyranny, but courage with love that could change the world. One choice at a time, and somewhere in a burning building, 7 years in the past, a seal and a girl made a promise that had become a life, a career, a family. The story that started in fire had become hope, and hope Evangeline thought was the most powerful force in the universe, worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for.